And we're live. Welcome back, everybody, to a new episode of the Wheelie Podcast. I'm your host, Micah Toll, and I'm joined again by Electrek's Seth Weintraub. How's it going, Seth?
Oh, good.
Awesome. And we have a bunch of new stories to cover this week. We've got everything from new e-bike unveilings. We're going to hear about some Super 73s, a new Urban Arrow. We're going to talk about a new danger when you're out e-biking that a lot of people don't realize. We've also got some motorcycle news. We've got a new model from Stark. Zero is taking itself on a bit of a Euro trip, and a few other interesting stories we're going to cover at the end there. So where are we going to start with this week, Seth?
All right. We're starting with Super73 unveils new e-bike that leaves everyone scratching their heads.
This one kind of blew my mind when I first saw it. This is the Super73 MZFT. It's a totally new model. They teased this a few weeks ago, and we covered the teaser, and it was very strange because the whole thing just looked kind of out of proportion, and now we see why. This is what appears to be basically a teen e-bike. It's, not like a kid's e-bike, but it's certainly not a full-size adult e-bike either. So it looks like it's meant for that sort of like 13, 14-year-old crowd. They're just starting to ride to school, that sort of thing. And that seems like what Super 73 is going after here. Now, I have to tell you, we don't know a lot of specs yet. While they did unveil the bike, they didn't actually launch it yet. So the launch, I believe, is expected to take place early next month. So we know that it's going to be a Class 2 e-bike because we can see the Class 2 sticker on it. And so that already tells us it's got at most 750 watts of power and will top out at most 20 miles per hour, and that it does include a throttle. Other than that, we sort of have to guess from all the pictures. Now, one thing that we do know is that it's got an option for 2 batteries. It comes with 1 battery, but there's this modular design, so you can put a second battery in there, and it also has locking storage. So these are 2 things that you rarely see on e-bikes. Certainly, the locking storage is very rare. In this case, the seat flips up, and that's how you access the batteries and the storage area. Now, it doesn't look like a huge area. I'm not even sure. Maybe it will fit a water bottle, but that's probably about the max. It seems like kind of a 2 banana storage box under the seat there. But it is neat for, like, if you're riding to school and you want to put, like, your phone or your wallet or something that you don't want to be carrying around, at least in the locked portion there. So that is kind of neat that they're offering that. Other than that, the rest of the bike is kind of a mystery here. It looks like it's a single speed. We can see there's no suspension. We don't really know what the tires are. I think those are 16s. I don't think they're 20-inch, but like the whole proportions here are kind of throwing me off. Like,
Yeah,
I
it
can't
depends
really
on how
tell
big
what's
those
going
kids
on.
are, really.
Right? Yeah, wish they would have included heights and weights in this
Yeah,
lineup because
age
the
at
whole
least.
thing is yeah, this is very confusing. And it's kind of a strange play. I mean, here's the thing. So Super 73, they were always like the young, motorcycle style, like biker gang in a e-bike sense company, right? So they built up this big legacy on that, and that was really cool. They were one of the few companies that built a super strong community. But then they also got a lot of flack for people riding their bikes like motorcycles, and the fact that you could unlock those bikes to go significantly faster than street legal speeds. And so once they started getting, all the negative attention for that, they went basically like, street legal, and they pushed out an update that limited their bikes back to legal limits. You can no longer do like the off-road unlock and suddenly get a motorcycle on the streets. Now their bikes are Class 2, and so they really tried to go like on the straight and narrow to make sure that they weren't going to be the target of what's eventually going to be a big crackdown on these types of bikes. So it kind of makes sense here that they're going to bring in something that sticks to those levels. And it also kind of makes sense that they're targeting that younger crowd, because this is uh, a burgeoning market in the e-bike space. Like 10 years ago, we started with largely older folks. As e-bikes have gotten more popular, they've become like the great equalizer. People ride them to work, etc. But in the last few years, I feel like the biggest growing market has really been younger riders, especially the ones looking for those higher power motorcycle style e-bikes, or even moving into like the Surons, especially the smaller versions of Surons for these younger riders, which that's like a whole other issue of whether, like, 13-year-old kids should be on Surons, but it seems like this is kind of the goal is to give kids a safer, more street legal alternative if they're going to be heading towards e-bikes. And there's a bigger discussion there on whether that is the right, direction to send kids. But if you're going to have kids on e-bikes, I think Super 73 is trying to say this is like a safer street legal way to do it. Seth, you've got boys that are all about bikes. What do you think about sort of this teen target market here?
Well, my boys unfortunately are spoiled by having ridden a Talaria, so the 20 mph on this is probably going to be a non-starter for them, which is like bad parenting on my part. But I think for younger kids, 12, 13, 14, which I think this demo, I mean, I don't like, I have a kid who looks like he's just a little bit older than these kids, and he's 14. So I think they're probably like 12-ish. I think this makes sense for those kind of kids. Obviously, there's going to be the people who are like, 12-year-olds should be pedaling their own bikes, like they shouldn't be using motors. They have legs, all that other stuff, which is fine. I get it. But,
At least they're not
like,
playing Fortnite.
right. Yeah, they're not on their phones at least. Well, maybe they are, but they're at least riding around while they're on their phones. Anyway, this looks like it looks like a cool vehicle, right? I mean, I don't know what cool is in 12-year-old parlance right now, but it looks to me like something that 12-year-old, 13-year-old, 14-year-old maybe would really enjoy riding around. And it is at 20 mph a lot safer than even some of the older Super 73s that are bigger and heavier and could be unlocked pretty easily. So I think parents will probably appreciate this if their kids are, they want something that looks like a motorcycle but is a lot safer because of the speed limitations. I think this is probably going to be a good choice.
Yeah, and it definitely looks like it sticks the landing on that appearance. Like if
Yep.
you're a kid looking for that sort of, cool motorcycle styling, like they Super 73 knows what they're doing there. So
Yep.
they hit that. But of course the kicker is going to be the price. And until we know that, it's sort of an open-ended question on whether this will be a success, because at a certain point parents are going to look at this and then they're going to look at like Electrek XP or Velotric or something else that if it's half the price is going to be a bit of a hard sell, even if Junior wants the motorcycle looking one.
I'm looking at the gear ratios on this. I don't think there's going to be a lot of pedaling going on here.
Yeah, though if that is a 16-inch tire, which I think it might be, then maybe it'll be a bit easier to pedal. But yeah, I mean, these things they don't look like they're meant to pedal in anything other than I ran out of battery and I need to get home
Right.
sense.
Right. Yeah. So, all right. Well, it'll be interesting to see where this ends up price wise and spec wise. And if it's looks wise going to be a compelling choice for younger kids who are all about the surrounds these days.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, let's move on. Urban Arrow launches new, more affordable electric cargo bike.
Yeah, I should preface that this is more affordable in Urban Arrow speak, so everything's relative, right? So like we covered a few months ago another Urban Arrow that was coming to the US that was that front loader style, like the big bathtub in the front, and that was I think $9,000. So this is Urban Arrow's new Breeze. It's a long tail cargo bike, so it's more like what we're used to seeing in terms of these stretched rear end cargo bikes in the US. And this one, well, it's not available in the US yet. It's still Europe only. It's priced at, I believe, 5,400, maybe 5,500 euros in Europe, which is a little over $6,000. So again, like expensive, but as far as Urban Arrow goes, that's pretty darn affordable for their lineup, where you've got a lot of like $9,000 super high end cargo bikes. Now, of course, if that's being compared to like a Radwagon or other so I got distracted by the tail there.
Yeah,
uh,
that's
or
it.
other cargo bikes in the US, that's a lofty price. But Urban Arrow is a very different company, right? Like this is a Dutch cargo bike maker. These are the kind of bikes that if you're literally getting rid of your car and going all cargo bike, this is what you get. It's got top of the line Bosch cargo motor. It's got high end components. Even just like the kickstand on this thing looks like it came off of a motorcycle, not like an electric bicycle. So this is a significantly higher end long tail cargo bike than we're used to seeing. And I'll be excited to see this one come to the US market. Now, I think it's probably not going to do as well here as it would in Europe, because in Europe, they're used to paying these kinds of prices for higher end bikes. But it is cool to see Urban Arrow bringing something that has their level of quality, their level of attention to detail at a more affordable price. Because as much as I love their front loader cargo bikes with that big bathtub design, like $9,000 is just a lot of money for a cargo bike. Like I can't imagine what volume they're doing. At $6,000, still, that's a chunk of change. But for a European family that either doesn't have a car or has one car and one bike, now you're talking about something that's doable, especially when you're considering that, these are bikes that are meant to last for years and years and years. And in this case, carry two kids, do like, a week shopping, basically heavy duty riding. This is not a metro bike. It's not a commuter bike. This is a serious cargo bike that's meant for hauling. So this to me is cool to see with this new Urban Arrow Breeze. And I'll be interested to see if it does come to the US, how it's received, because it's very much more of a European pricing. And then even there, like Europe, they're very much into their front loader, the Bach-Fiat style cargo bikes. So it's kind of an American cargo bike
Yeah.
design in Europe at European pricing. The whole thing is just like an interesting hodgepodge of features and specs here. So a cool new offering from Urban Arrow, but one that I'll be fascinated to see how it actually does in the market because of these choices.
So you say these are 26-inch wheels? They look a little smaller than that.
Um, yeah, it's a good point. They
Maybe 24.
do look, yeah, they do. I mean, they're not as small as 20s, but yeah, maybe that's just, a Dutch woman and she's very tall, right?
Okay.
Like, I don't know. That is kind of strange looking now that you mention it. Yeah.
Um, Bike looks great. You know what it kind of reminds me of a little bit?
Yeah.
Uh, that that leak you had a couple weeks ago. Um, the,
Also,
also, yeah.
yeah, the large down tube. Yeah, I can see it. And like the sort of chunky around the motor there.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't think about that until you bring it up now, but it does, like, in the profile, have a bit of that look to it.
Yep.
Which makes
And
sense because also guys come from like higher end bike backgrounds, so
yep. And
similar lineage.
pricing wise, probably also similar.
Yeah,
We're
and
gonna
that
hear
one
more
is, I think, the 20th or 22nd, something like
22nd.
that.
Yeah, we're gonna
Yeah,
find out a
that's
lot
when they're
more about
saying.
that
We'll learn
then.
more.
And also, we got a little bit of a pre-brief, so we know some stuff about that. We're under embargo, obviously, but I can say that it's going to be a very compelling thing. So make sure everybody stays tuned for the news on October 22nd.
Yeah,
And
you guys are gonna want to hear. Seth
it's
Seth has some interesting first person perspective, so we'll be excited to hear
it's
what he
going to be
thinks of that new one.
it's going to be a big deal.
Yeah, I'm excited.
All right, let's go move on here. The hidden deadly threat to scooter and e-bike riders besides cars.
Yeah, this one, this actually comes in the form of a very unfortunate story, but I think it's important to tell. The basis of this article was there was a fatality in Portland where a e-bike rider unfortunately hit, or actually, I'm sorry, he was on a scooter. He hit a pothole that was known to the city, and like everyone, all the businesses on that road have been calling the city for a long time, asking him to fix it. And unfortunately, he was killed after hitting this
Oof.
pothole. And this isn't something that is like, a very sporadic occurrence. This is something that is becoming much more common. These single vehicle accidents with micromobility that is caused by not going too fast, not, it being wet out, not car collisions, but merely infrastructure and a lack thereof, or a lack of maintaining that infrastructure. This is becoming much more common, and it's something that, as micromobility users, e-bike riders, scooter riders, all of us, that it's something that we need to be aware about. We talk a lot about the importance of building new cycling infrastructure, or like alternative lanes, for everybody's scooters, electric unicycles, everything, protected bike lanes, that sort of thing. But what doesn't come up as much is about simply maintaining the infrastructure that we have. Because for a car, like, you go over a pothole, it's annoying. Like, you bump. Maybe it's a flat tire if it's, a super sharp edge or deep pothole. But for micromobility users, potholes can literally be lethal. I mean, these are life and death situations when you're on two wheels, especially with a lot narrower tires. If you've got fat tires, and this is one of the reasons a lot of people prefer fat tires, you can cover a lot of these obstacles and potholes. But for anyone that's on narrower tires, especially road bike style tires, or if you've got smaller wheels like scooters that often will have 8-inch, 9-inch wheels, then these potholes can be serious road hazards. And in this case, this is just such an unfortunate situation because this man, the pothole that he hit, like I said, it had been known to the city. The businesses they would tell the news, like they've been calling the city like for weeks, months, I think, saying like there's this giant pothole. It's really dangerous. People are complaining, like, please come fix this. And it was only after someone died that a couple days later, the city came out and filled in the pothole. And the question is, why does it take a death? Like, why do we have to wait until someone dies to fix these things? It's something that we haven't talked about as much because it's not as sexy of a story as building bike lanes and building infrastructure, but maintaining what we have and ensuring that these kinds of obstacles aren't sitting out there lurking for e-bike riders and micromobility riders is just as important, perhaps more important, because these are the hidden dangers. And I think that as more and more people move to e-bikes, more and more people move to e-scooters, and we see this slow but growing shift away from cars, this is only going to become more important. And I think it's incumbent upon us as riders to really demand from cities that this is something that's taken care of. This is something that is given the effort that it needs. That road maintenance is no longer a nice to have, but when you've got more and more people on micromobility vehicles, this is something that's critical to the health and safety of your local population. So it's terribly unfortunate that this is what it took to get, in this case, one specific pothole important and fixed. But I wanted to cover this because I think that it points to a larger issue that we all need to be aware about, and I think it needs to be part of the conversation in cities all over the U.S. and all over the world. Though I think in many countries they do a better job maintaining their roads. But I think it's something that needs to be part of the conversation more and more. That it's not just about building separate bike lanes. It's not just about making safer infrastructure. It's also about maintaining what we have and keeping it safe for everyone. So that's my little PSA there.
Without getting too grotesque, did it say like the cause of death? Was he wearing a helmet or?
I think he was not wearing a helmet. I'm always hesitant to get like too much into that. I personally always recommend that everyone wear a helmet. I know that this is a touchy subject and it brings up like accusations of victim blaming and that sort of thing. I would never say that, someone is at fault if they didn't wear a helmet, but I personally always try to wear one. I was only ever in one collision on an e-bike, and I almost didn't wear a helmet that time because it was like a 2-minute ride. I almost didn't put it on, even though I always do. And then I stopped and I was like, you know what, I'll just throw it on. And I went like, it was less than 2 minutes. And on the way I got hit. And I was very glad that I had put it on that time. So I always recommend, even if, you're saying, oh, I'm just going down the road, it's like a 1-minute ride, always put it on. That's my thoughts there.
Yeah, I agree. It's just easy to get into a habit of it. Leave the helmet on the bike. Just, make it part of your routine.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, I think that, as more people, especially as we ride, faster e-bikes and it becomes an everyday vehicle, to me, there's even more than just wearing a helmet. At a certain point, like I started trying to ride in closed-toed shoes, and not just wear my sandals. When I can, I try to remember to wear pants and not shorts. Like there's, preparing for that kind of stuff is important. Obviously, you don't want it to be too much of a barrier to people to be able to comfortably switch to riding an e-bike. But I think that there is a discussion on what is the right amount, and while that's different for each person, I think it is an important discussion.
Yep, I agree. All right, let's move on. Heybike Ranger 3.0 Pro review: 28 mile per hour foldable fat tire e-bike with full suspension comfort.
This one kind of surprised me. we've talked
Hey
about. I feel like
everyone,
each
Micah
each
here with
time
a
that we cover a hay bike, it always starts with, "Man, these things are getting better and better," but they really are. Like they're a pretty good company now. And in this case, I would say that the Ranger 3.0 Pro here is probably one of the best full suspension folding e-bikes out there right now in the budget range. I believe it's $1,500 right now. The price seemed to fluctuate depending on different like promotions when it first came out a month or two ago, but I think now it's leveled off at about 1,500. And it does have pretty decent full suspension. Like that's the big takeaway here. There are a few other things, we'll go over those, but like the main takeaway is there are a lot of 20-inch folders out there. This is one of the few that has full suspension, and I would further quantify that by saying this is one of the few that has like legit full suspension. Like it doesn't have some weird motorcycle style, like dual coilovers in the back that look cool but don't do anything. This is like 4-bar horse link. Like this is real suspension. I think they probably hired someone who actually designs bikes to make this instead of just drawing up something that looks like a motorcycle and putting a couple coilovers on it. Now, this is not, super high end stuff, but it does ride better because of this. And I know a lot of people, especially older riders or just anyone that has, back issues, that sort of thing, that they really prefer to stick with full suspension setups because it's just so much more comfortable when you hit those bumps. For normal bike lane riding, to me, it doesn't make a huge difference, especially if you've got fat tires because they absorb that kind of road chatter. But when you really hit bumps, when you hit those potholes, when you hop over curbs, which seems to happen a lot if you're in an area that doesn't have the best cycling infrastructure, and so you're hopping from like road to sidewalk to trail, that's where that full suspension really comes in. And of course, if you're taking it off road. Now, I will say this is not like a trail bike. This is very much intended to be more of an urban bike. It does have, like turn signals and rack and fenders. This is very much like a commuter style bike, but with that full suspension, it just means that you can take it more places. You can take it on nature trails. You can hit potholes and bumps and feel more comfortable. On the spec side, it's got what most budget fat tire folding bikes have: 750 watts of power. The battery is, I believe, 15 amp hours at 48 volts, so 720 watt hours, if I'm not mistaken. If not, it's pretty darn close to that. Removable battery, pretty heavy, but it does fold up. Here you can see if you're watching the review with us, it's got your basic standard folding setup here. It's a bit chunky, but that's just what you get with fat tire full suspension bikes. Like you can have it comfortable or you can have it sort of light and svelte. You can't have both of them. But for all the stuff you get here, rack, fenders, turn signals, horn, folding, fat tires, like it's pretty good for $1,500. If I could have changed one thing, I probably would have uh, opted for 3-inch tires instead of 4-inch. I just don't think that the 4-inch is necessary. Especially with the full suspension. Like if it was a rigid bike, then yeah, the 4-inch is helpful because you get that extra air cushion. But I just don't think that you need it on this level of full suspension bike, and it just makes the bike heavier when you've got that extra rubber there. If you actually take fat tires off of a bike and you hold them, they're surprisingly heavy. Like rubber is not a light material. You don't think the tires add much, but they really add a lot of weight to it. So I could have cut some pounds there, I think. Then the last thing is you can actually see in the review there that it's got the NFC unlocking, which is pitched as like a really cool security feature. And it has some advantage there. Like you legit can't turn on the bike and steal it without either the NFC card or using the pin that you can set up. Like if you lose your NFC card or you don't want to carry it on your keys. However, for me, it's just an annoying extra step. Like I'm
Yep.
usually locking my bike either in a garage or a bike room. Like I'm rarely leaving it out in public unless it's like 5 minutes at a store kind of thing. So while it's a neat feature, and especially if you were like a delivery rider or something and you're like all the time leaving your bike outside, I could see it. But for me, it's just kind of overkill. And I wish there was a way to just totally disable either the pin or the card. Because for me, like I was just leaving the cards clipped onto the
Right.
the brake cables, so they were there, and it wasn't annoying. I didn't have to fish it out or forget it in my other pants. But all told, I would really recommend this to someone who's looking for that full suspension comfortable setup, because there's just in this category there's just not that much out there that's decent quality. It's a lot of kind of junky stuff, so this is a pretty good one at a budget price.
Yeah, Heybike continues to impress. Just I keep talking about my Vermont Heybike Tyson from, I don't know, 3 years ago now. Still kicking up there all through the winter. The hydraulic disc brakes are great. So really happy with them, and can recommend them wholeheartedly.
Yeah, I think they're doing some good things over there. The first, I think when they first came out, it was like 2020 or 2021. The first round of bikes was a little rough around the edges, but
Right.
they've been making big improvements.
Yeah, the first round, I don't know about you, but I was thinking, oh, just another dropship company with a silly name, and they're kind of, the second round came in a little bit more polished, and then they've done even more since then.
Definitely.
All right, this is probably a very niche product. A new electric unicycle hits an insane 93 miles per hour top speed.
This isn't going to be a new bestseller. A
No.
90 plus mile an hour electric unicycle. All right. Well, I wouldn't call it too soon. So yeah, this is the new InMotion P6. It's basically for insane people, it seems like, who would like to go 90 miles an hour on a single wheel. It has a 20 kilowatt peak motor. I think it's 6,000 continuous watts. But at a certain point, like when you have enough zeros, like it's all just very, very powerful. Like I don't know that I could tell the difference between a 10 kilowatt and a 20 kilowatt electric unicycle at that point. Um, it's a 235 volt system. Like that's the only way you can get to that kind of power at a certain point, because you just can't keep increasing the current, or you'd have wires the size of like a garden hose in there. So it's an incredibly high voltage system. It claims an acceleration of 0 to 50 kilometers per hour. It's about 0 to 31 in under 2 seconds, which, if you've ever ridden an electric unicycle, you'll know that like the control system is basically you lean forward to go forward and you lean back to brake. And so to lean forward on something that's self-balancing and then hit 30 miles an hour in less than 2 seconds, like the amount of faith you have to have in the device between your ankles is something that I don't think I possess here. But it is neat that this exists. And it also has a pretty large battery, I should mention too. It's 4.2 kilowatt hours, which, like, there are electric motorcycles that have less battery than that. So to fit all of that in an electric unicycle is pretty impressive. At the end, I just tossed a video of another InMotion that is significantly less powerful in to give a sense of what it's like to ride these things. So if you're watching the video here with us, that's a lower power model. But this new P6 is, I think this is probably the highest performance electric unicycle out there. I don't know of any others. If I've missed one that has higher performance than 20 kilowatts and 93 miles an hour, let me know in the comments, because that would be an impressive feat to have something more than this. But so far, I think this basically tops it. Now, I don't know who this is really for, because there are lots of 50 mile an hour electric unicycles out there. InMotion has several, and to me, it's like, how much more do you need? Now, I get that the EUC community out there is very adamant about these vehicles, and I appreciate a lot of their advantages. Like they're smaller than an e-bike, so they're easier to bring in with you. Lots of places you don't have to worry about locking up, because where you'd lock up an e-bike, you just roll this in with you. They're more convenient. They fit in smaller areas. You can transport it in a smaller vehicle, even like the front seat of a car. There's a lot of advantages. They also, for people who ride them often, they basically become an extension of your body. And so for a lot of people, they're just intuitive. Like it sounds counterintuitive, because it seems like this would be hard to balance on. But when you really do it a lot, it just becomes an extension of like your feet, basically. So I get that there are people who really like these, but at this level of performance, like we're looking at pictures of guys in full leather racing suits for motorcycling, and that's the only place I can imagine this would be useful or necessary, is for like racing purposes. Because even if you're commuting on big roads on these, like 50 or 60 miles an hour is probably fine, right? Like maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there are people that were saying like, man, this 60 mile an hour electric unicycle is really holding me
I
back.
can't even
But
pass people on the highway. It's
yeah, exactly. I can't get in the left lane on this thing.
I find it so, for those listening, we're looking at a picture of two leather clad uh, riders, and I think they're going so fast that they actually have to lean forward, like, at almost like a 45-degree angle and put their arms out because there's just so much wind resistance that would knock them off the bike. Like, they don't have the ankle support for that. So to
Yeah,
go that fast, you have to, like, go at an angle, and I wonder if, like, the thing is built for that. It's crazy.
yeah, it definitely looks like they're launching there because they're so. I mean, that almost looks like more than 45 to me. Like
Yeah,
I don't know how fast they're going yet, but they're definitely accelerating with that extreme lean. Like when I ride, I don't feel like I'm leaning more than maybe 10 degrees when
yeah,
I'm accelerating. Like I'm certainly not laying down like they're doing it.
right. Yeah, it's
Yeah, so
bananas.
this is wild. It's
You know what
also I
else
should mention, yeah.
I've seen, these go up the steepest hills I've ever seen in my life. Like
Yeah.
like, people are, like, mountain climbing or, like, um, they're literally climbing up, and somebody just comes up with one of these and, like, basically just it's all about how much, the tread can hold the thing, but they're going up, like, more than 45-degree angles, probably, like, 60 degrees or something crazy.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it definitely becomes a traction issue. But I think this is in terms of hill climbs, this is probably the best micromobility device for it because basically you're always at the right angle
Yep.
because it's self-balancing. So yeah, like you're limited by the physics of traction at that point. Like if your tires were sticky enough, these things could climb a wall.
Yeah. And it's interesting, there's that whole unicycle world where, these things are kind of like skis, and then, you have the one wheels, which kind of take the, skateboard or snowboard stance, where they're sideways. And, it's interesting to see how both of these are existing, and, people like each one for different purposes, but, um, and they're both getting the job done of making, a new ways to get around town.
Yeah, yeah, I feel like this is definitely there's a lid for every pot of micromobility.
Right. Yep, good job keeping it under 100, I guess. Yes. Alright, this is some interesting news for me. E-motorcycle maker Zero is moving its headquarters from the US to Europe.
Yeah, this is also a bit of a head scratcher, or perhaps not if you've been following Zero for the last few years. But the company, which is I think they're still probably the biggest electric motorcycle company in the U.S. They've been headquartered out in Santa Cruz, California, and now they're moving to the Netherlands. They are going to keep a bit of a skeleton crew in California. They're going to call that their innovation center, so they'll keep some engineers there to work on R&D. I think that'll let them still sort of like put a designed in California sticker or something on there.
Right,
And perhaps it has a few other logistic benefits, but it seems like for the most part, the company and the headquarters are going European. Now that in and of itself is not surprising because Europe has always been Zero's largest market, despite being a California company originally. The European motorcycle market is just significantly larger than the U.S. market, regardless of electric or ice powered. But certainly in electric, it's just the U.S. market pales in comparison to how many electric motorcycles are sold in Europe. So that's not surprising there. The other thing is that Zero has also been increasing the international um, component of the business for a while. So originally the bikes were more assembled in the US. There were always parts that were manufactured overseas, and there was more assembly here. Over time, more and more of the actual production has moved overseas. There's been obviously significant partnership with Chinese factories, but also the company has created other partnerships across Asia, I believe in India as well. So there's a lot of outsourcing that's been going on. The newest bikes even are a huge partnership with Zhongzhen. I think the XE and XB are basically Zhongzhen motorcycles that Zero I think put their motor in, kind of thing, if that, and perhaps some
yeah,
of
I was
their
gonna say,
programming as well.
I think it might be more just like their logos and stickers.
Yeah, I mean, I think there has been some level of hardware collaboration, but it's the proportion of what has been Zero and what has been Asian OEMs has been changing over the years in the Asian uh, direction.
Mm.
So to see Zero sort of finally move the last bit of it out of the US is not surprising here, but they've so long had that like California culture to the company that I think this was still a shock to a lot of people, even though we've known, they sell more bikes in Europe. They get more components in Asia. Like at a certain point, what are they doing in California? It still comes as a bit of surprise to see them finally say, like, yeah, we've kind of done all we can do here, and it just doesn't make sense, financially, with the market, with the talent, etc., to still be headquartered in California. Now, what that means for the future of the company, I don't know. We're seeing them move towards smaller bikes. We're seeing them move to more Asian production. Um, it'll be interesting to see how those smaller bikes do in Europe. At least in Europe, they're XE and XP are street legal, which they
Yeah,
don't have,
homologated there. That's amazing.
yeah, in the US. So again, like all the signs were kind of pointing to this. Perhaps it should have happened sooner, you could even say. But it's just always been such like, an American legacy for as long as, an electric motorcycle company can have a legacy, which is a little over 15 years for Zero. Which again is pretty long for the electric motorcycle market, but like that legacy has always been California. So it was just kind of like, a blow to see them move out of the state, move out of the country to head to Europe. There are some there are some other Zero rumors swirling around now that I'm trying to confirm, so I'm not going to share anything here yet until I can get some, confirmation on this and not just spread rumors. But there's some happenings at Zero that we're investigating that there could be some more to this coming up in the next week or so once we can
Is
pin
it
this down.
head count kind of things, or is it
There's some head count. Yeah, there's potentially some shakeups.
yep.
So again, like I want to make sure I confirm everything fully before like I share anything. But I think there is more Zero news coming sooner rather than later.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say it's a shame that they only homologated those the small bikes in Europe. I think there's a real market for Suran type bikes that are legal in the US. I think New has the only one that's officially street legal, right?
Yeah, there there are some states that you can like get a kit and homologate yourself a Saran, but yeah, news is designed to meet federal regulations as is, so you don't have to go through like jumping through hoops and stuff. Yeah.
All right, hopefully more of those coming down the pike. And speaking of those, we have our last story. Stark VARG SM launched as a street legal electric motorcycle with jaw-dropping specs.
Stark has just been like on a tear. I mean, they're so this is a Spanish electric motorcycle maker. They're pretty new. I believe they started operations in, I want to say, was it like 2022, if I'm not mistaken. By last year, they were already selling bikes at a good clip. This year, they announced profitability, which is crazy for. I mean, there are a lot of electric motorcycle companies that are not profitable at all. I don't believe Zero is profitable. Energica went under, Cake went under. Like, it's hard right now to turn a profit in this market. These are expensive vehicles, the market's smaller, etc. So the fact that they're already profitable is a huge deal, and that was with an off-road bike. Now the new Stark Varge MX takes sort of the foundation of what they've built, and turn this into, sorry, the SM has taken the foundation of the MX and turned it into a street legal bike. But it's not just like, throwing turn signals onto this thing. They've really made a new model here. So it's designed for road use. This is a supermoto, so it's not a huge bike. I think it's about 270 pounds or so, but it's incredibly powerful. 80 horsepower, 675 foot-pounds of torque at the rear wheel. All this delivered like effortlessly, right? Like there are no gears here. It's a single speed. So this is like scooter controls, literally a twist of the wrist, and you're putting down over 600 foot-pounds of torque to the pavement, which is kind of crazy. I mean, this is just like this is a specimen of engineering compared to anything we've seen in the market for this type of bike. Now it is expensive. It's somewhere around, I want to say 12,000 euros. Let me double check that here so I don't lead you astray. Yeah, 12,990 euros. So fairly expensive. That's the starting price too. That's the 60 horsepower one. So the higher power, 80 horsepower, I think is another 1,000 euros. It's like 14,000. So convert that to dollars, it'll be slightly higher. But it is available in all the different markets that they sell in. So available in the US, available in Europe. They're really pushing this thing far and wide. They've got a large network of dealers out there as well. So this is basically just an incredibly impressive format, and it's really cool to see Stark bring this to the street because they've dominated in the sort of motocross off-road segment. Their bikes even got electric motorcycles banned from the X Games for being too good. So to see them take the foundation of what they've built for off-road and bring it to street bikes, specifically in this case the supermoto category, is just really cool. I'm really excited to see this engineering out on the street. I haven't gotten a chance to ride this one yet. Unfortunately, I was double booked, so I didn't get a chance to try one of these earlier. Hopefully, I will be able to get on one of these at some point. It's probably more bike than I can handle. I'm not used to. I mean, I have a live wire, but like I don't. It's not a supermoto, right? Like it's a nice, heavy planted street bike, and this thing is really designed to open it up and do all sorts of things. Like you see a guy riding up on a crazy high banked oval there. Like this is a bike that you can go out and have some real fun on. For anyone who's like into stunts, that sort of thing, this is going to be a lot of fun to rip on. And the fact that it's street legal is just a cherry on top. It's like a Suron on steroids that you can get licensed and ride legally and not worry about having to outrun the cops on. So very exciting here. Not the cheapest bike out there, but they know what they're doing with designing and building these things, and so I have to imagine it's worth it for the build quality that Stark has been putting into these.
Yeah, and also, they did make some upgrades. I noticed they had some gear ratios and some stuff like that, but you can also throw off-road tires on this and take it off-road pretty quickly.
Yeah, you definitely could, but like their MX would probably be the better one for that. Like it's just the suspension's more tuned, that sort of thing. But the
Yeah,
cool thing is like you could, you basically ride trails on the weekend and use this as your commuter to work during the week.
right.
I mean, for
Yeah,
a
I mean,
while I had Zero's Supermoto. It was their FXS, if I'm not mistaken, or FXE. This was like 2019. But yeah, I would ride that on trails and I ride it on the street, and I took that thing everywhere.
yeah, this is a cool product. So you said you were double booked. Are you scheduled to go out there anytime soon?
Um, I don't have it on the calendar yet, but I have sort of an open invitation, so I got to figure out when I can get out to Barcelona and try this thing out.
Cool. Yeah, it looks like a ton of fun. All right, that's all for stories. Let's go into the comments. We got some LinkedIn conversation here. Wow, 20 mile per hour. I think that was their first
The
story
Super
there.
73, yeah.
Yeah. Easy E13. I'd rather go with the wired Freedom for a third the price. I think that's compared to the Urban Arrow.
Um, yeah, I thought the wired bikes, I thought those were like sort of the higher power. Was that maybe like compared to the Super 73? I'm not sure.
Oh,
Or
maybe.
is the Freedom their cargo bike? Should look that up real quick.
All
Yeah, I
right.
don't know wired as well. I've heard mixed reviews about wired.
All right. While we're doing that, Skeptic says it's an auto cycle, so I think it's okay to ask here. Did you watch Aptera's first day as a publicly traded stock yesterday? I did. It lost a lot of value. I
Oh, did they
think,
just go public?
yeah, sort of. They're listed now, and people who own stock are now transferring their money in and out of it. I think the idea of the Aptera is so amazing, but it I just don't think the folks running the show there are spool up a automobile company type people, and I don't know if they have anybody there kind of in that realm, which is so unfortunate because the idea of the Aptera is amazing. I have a reservation for one, which I don't ever plan. I don't expect to ever see that come to light. But
Yeah, I
um,
was gonna ask if you think you'll get it. That's
no, I think I put $100 down on it. It was more like just here, just make
it was
something,
like the the buy-in at the table.
right? Yeah. Um, but obviously, like it would be cool to see if they got bought by like I don't know, Samsung or some bigger automobile company or motorcycle company, and a manufacturing person got in there and made the design happen because it is super impressive. I mean, I don't have it URL handy, but it's basically a solar car. It's interesting because it's so aerodynamic that it's like if you had a 1 foot by 1 foot box moving through the air, it's like the same resistance as that, which is very small. I think they said that the rear view mirror singular on the Ford F-150 has more wind resistance than the Aptera does.
Wow, that's
So
that's nuts. Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, in concept, it seems incredible. I haven't followed it that closely because also like when it came back, it just like right from the beginning, it seemed like a don't get too committed kind of situation.
yeah. I mean, it
Um,
did feel like they were like,
don't
oh, there's
fall
all
in
this
love.
money in the
Yeah.
space. Let's resurrect this idea.
Yeah, but I feel like we don't live in a good and just enough world where something like that can succeed as
I
a
know.
viable product, you know? And I wish that wasn't the case. Like I wish those were the normal cars
Yes,
zipping
that's what
around.
I mean, maybe with, crypto and, AI taking up all the electricity, all of a sudden those will make more sense. I don't know.
Yeah, hopefully.
Alright, regarding infrastructure, I'm always amazed that the people are able to commute on e-skateboards because those require manicured surfaces. Micah, you and I both know, you don't even have to hit a pothole, just like a sidewalk crack or something, and, you're going forward. It's like one of those things where you have to keep your eyes on the ground when you're riding
Yeah.
skateboards.
Yeah, I do minimal skateboard time anymore. Like there's still a lot of fun. Like it's more of a thrill than I get from any other type of micromobility device, I would say, but I really only like to ride on roads that I know because like I know where the potholes are, that sort of thing. Whenever I'm riding a skateboard in a new area, it's just so stressful because every little thing you're watching for because it's such a bigger deal than when you're on an e-bike.
Yeah, it's fun, way more fun to carve though. Those things are a blast.
Yeah.
I saw Fred's review of the Can-Am Outlander electric ATV. I went and put $1,000 down on one. Supposed to take delivery in January or February. Yeah, Can-Am. I think they're Canadian, right? They
Yeah.
they have a new four wheeler out. I don't know. Do you have opinion on it?
So actually I need to check out Fred's review. I covered when they launched it, but I haven't heard Fred's analysis from his experience on it. They are a bit pricey. I think was it like 20 or 25,000, something like
Wow,
that. I
expensive.
mean, that sounds like a lot. Maybe it can't be that high, but it was pretty expensive if I'm not mistaken, but like very high power. It had one of the highest, if not the highest tow capacities for an ATV of any ATV on the market, if I'm not mistaken, like compared to even gas ATVs, and several that are significantly more powerful. Because I think it falls in something like the 4 to 600 cc equivalent, and there are like 1,000 cc and higher gas ATVs out there. So the performance is incredible. And Can-Am, they've been doing um, off-road vehicles for a long time. They've got their new electric motorcycles that they brought back. I'll be excited to see them bring this to some of their other, their jet skis. Their maybe that what's that three-wheeler they have? The not the slingshot. That's the Polaris, right? The, I forget what their three-wheeler is, but like they've got a bunch of vehicles, so it'd be cool to bring that in. But the Outlander electric ATV certainly looks interesting. A bit pricey, but these first vehicles of any category are going to be pricier.
Yeah. All right. Question: how is maintenance on e-bikes? I could take my analog bike to the local bike shop to get repairs, part replacements. How does that work for all the brands of Chinese e-bikes? I think where you can make money, I think um, bike shops are doing some repairs on bikes, especially if it's the non-motor parts or battery. But even that is, I think some bike shops aren't letting in certain Chinese batteries. They don't want to store the batteries for liability
Yeah.
reasons. But
And it's
the most,
very hit or miss.
yeah,
Like, you really have to check like each bike shop. It's getting better. Like it used to be years ago. Like I would, roll into a bike shop with an e-bike and they'd be like out,
yeah.
like
There's a flat
especially
tire.
all the Chinese.
You have
Yeah,
tires,
exactly. Yeah.
and they're
So
like,
now it's
no,
much better. They see that, half of bikes out on the road, more
right.
in some places are e-bikes. So like, they see that if they want customers, they have to accept them. But yeah, for stuff like, controllers, not gonna be able to help you. But most normal bike stuff, you need pads, you need tires, that kind of stuff. A lot of e-bikes now are pretty accepting of even the Chinese e-bikes.
All right, we're going to skip ahead a little bit. Who is supposed to be the market for the Zero XE? 6,500 is way too much for such a low speed and range. Well, it's a Suron basically, and obviously you can get Surons for significantly less than that. But
Yeah, it's kind of the big Sauron. Like I think it's more meant to compete with the is it the
B,
Storm is
Hornby,
the
yeah,
bigger one, I think. Yeah, not the Firefly, but like the
light,
larger yeah.
yeah, it's the Light B and the Storm B, and I think yeah, you're right. The Storm B is more akin to it. Although I
Yeah,
still
so
think it's like 5,000 or something for that.
yeah, I mean it's more expensive. Theoretically, you're paying for a higher quality product. Whether or not that's true or not, I'm not entirely sure. But it is competing against like the lighter end of like the KTM electric, the free ride, and some of the other larger off-road electrics. It's half the price of a Stark, for example. So I think it's for someone who wants to go more serious than a Suron, or certainly a Suron Light B, but isn't ready to like throw down on a Stark kind of thing. How many
Yeah.
people are in that Goldilocks zone? I'm not sure, but I think that was their thought process.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to, take note that there's going to be zero shops around that can service these things. And the brand's been around for 15 years, and so there's some advantages there. All right, Carl says when government incentives and therefore EV cars are slowing growth, policymakers and market mavens would look beyond a car and choose to boost active transportation and micromobility. Better solution. All right, that's a little soapboxy, but I agree. Uh, Regarding Aptera, I think their big mistake was switching from a low volume hand built production plan to a high volume plan that requires a lot of expensive tooling. Um, I mean, maybe just to get a few on the road that they could have done the low volume hand built, but now that they're kind of on the brink, this high volume plan seems like maybe they should have done something else. It's frustrating because we've been sitting here for like almost a decade in their second iteration, and they keep saying, "Well, we need more money. We need more money," and it's like, all right, when do we give up here?
Yeah, when do you pull the plug?
All right, Carl says my only beef with Aptera is that it's the opposite of good packaging. It's gangly while being relatively small interior, but if that's what it takes to get 10 miles per kilowatt hour, I approve. And then Skeptic says the Can-Am electric ATV starts at 13,000. I accessorize my build for 16,000.
Oh yeah, I was way off. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Bike shops having to learn to service e-bikes. I guess it's the most. I guess is most are livid about the lack of interchangeable parts on most. Not supposed to be a trade where you have to research and order bespoke parts. Yeah, I mean, even bike shops aren't. They've got a variety of bikes already, and bespoke stuff is going to make them more money probably. So I don't think they're too worried about that.
Yeah, but also a lot of the cheaper Chinese e-bikes they use, I mean, not disposable is not the right term, but like, you know, the really bottom end of all the components, right? So like the worst derailleurs, the worst brake levers, like a lot of these parts. And so like when you have to go out and find each of those, and a lot of the bike shops don't stock such low level parts, right? Because like how much money can you make on a turning derailleur? Like, I can't
Right.
imagine there's a lot of profit there.
But it's also an opportunity to upgrade theoretically.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I got an Alivio here if you want to put that on your junky $500 Amazon bike. Get some SRAM GX parts on there.
All right, Aptera tried to build the company with hand built and failed. I think they just might make it if they don't limit themselves to the US market. Yeah, we just need to see some actual vehicles roll off the line. That's what's going to make or break them.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see it work, but I don't know. You putting out $100 is even more faith than I have in them.
I did that about what 8 years ago or something, 7 years ago.
Oh, okay. So would you do it today?
No.
Okay. Well, there you go. All right. I think that is the end of the comments, if I'm not
Yep.
mistaken. So thank you all for joining in. Very excited to have you here with us, and we'll be back in another 2 weeks with the next episode of the Wheelie Podcast. See you next time, everyone.